If you Googled what should go into a pitch deck or even search YouTube, you're probably going to get several different variations of the same answer. The reason for this is what goes into your pitch deck can really vary depending on who you're pitching to. So in this virtual class that was previously recorded, I'm going to break down what is absolutely needed in your pitch deck to attract investors, what things you should leave out so you don't bog your deck down with unnecessary information that will turn potential investors and partners off, and what you should have on hand but maybe not actually put in your deck so you have some negotiating power. If you don't know me, I am Landi Maduro. I am very passionate about helping filmmakers, which is why I launched a new division of my company, Blue Child Academy, where I offer educational courses because I really want to see filmmakers win.
I forgot about that. The potential investor, or if you're pitching to a corporation, why would they be interested in your project or your film? What would draw their interest? So you have to kind of tailor your pitch deck to fit the investor's needs. Okay, so making sure that you're thinking about that. And even you got to think about the type of film you have. So what would go into a narrative film pitch deck is definitely a little bit different than what will go into a documentary film pitch deck. So keeping that in mind is also important. So that way you're making sure your pitch deck fits the person that you're pitching to. So let's just talk about what exactly is a pitch deck. A pitch deck is a visual presentation used to pitch a film project to potential investors, collaborators. So sometimes it's just someone you may want to collaborate with. Maybe there's a name that you really want to get in your film because you feel like it will be helpful, and a pitch deck might be a great way to do that. It also can help you get producers, distributors, and other stakeholders. So it serves several key purposes. And the first thing you want to be thinking about with your pitch deck is communicating your vision. So your vision needs to be cohesively communicated. So it should include your story, tone, the style, and the overall look and feel of your film is what should be like, kind of like the first part of what's in your pitch deck. It should also showcase key elements. So when we're talking about key elements, we're talking about what is your log line, which I know this is where a lot of people get hung up, right? What is your log line, your synopsis, maybe a little bit about your characters, the setting and theme. So that's kind of what goes into the key elements. It should introduce your team, who, or actually before that, provide cast wish lists or attached talent. So sometimes, you may not have the talent yet. So it's like, who are your dream people? Who would you love to have in your film? Or if you have a talent attached, then who are those people? And then introducing the team. So who's the writer, director, producer? I know for us as indie filmmakers, a lot of time we are the writer and director, right? Or maybe the writer and producer. But those key people, those people that if you're pitching to an investor, they're going to have to deal with these people. They're going to have to deal with the producer. They're going to have to deal with the director, right? They may want to know who that is or meet them. So those people are important to have in your deck. See. Okay, additional content. So additional content you should have on hand that don't necessarily need to go into your pitch deck or should go into it depending on who you are pitching to. So some things, not everything needs to go in there. And these are the additional things that I often see in every pitch deck, but they're not always necessary. First thing I would say is demonstrating the market potential. So a lot of times you'll see in pitch decks where people are including their target audience, marketing strategies, potential box office or streaming successes. So kind of what are the comparable films? They're showing, who the film how they can attract viewers and generate revenue. That is additional information that I wouldn't necessarily put in a pitch deck offhand. Okay, that's just additional. Second, visual references, right? So when we talk about visual references, what are the images like concept art, mood boards, other visual things to give a clear sense of your film's aesthetic and tone? So, if you're not familiar with the mood board, it would kind of be like, what are the colors like? What are the, sorry, it's asking me a question. Okay. What's the colors going to be like? What is the tone? Like what are some of the visuals? What ideas do you have for the locations? Those type of things shouldn't necessarily always go in a pitch deck, but you may want to have them on hand in case a question in regards to that information comes up. Then highlight comparable projects like we talked about. What's a comp? So a comparable project would be something that's like your film, that came out before and was successful, that they made a good profit. You never want to pick a comparable project that didn't do well, right? So when you pick a comparable project, it needs to be something that really did well at the box office or on streaming platforms was possible. Maybe it was did well. Maybe it was in the top 10 for a while on Netflix or something like that. So those are the type that you want to pick. Again, this is just additional information. And lastly, the outline of your budget. Having a preliminary budget and funding plan outlined with financial requirements and how the film funds will be allocated, not to go in the budget. And I'm going to explain, or excuse me, in the deck. And I'm going to explain why in just a moment.
I know you may have a brilliant film idea or a half-finished script or maybe even an amazing indie film that you poured your heart and blood and sweat and tears into that is sitting on a hard drive with no plans to make money. Well, I want to help you fix that. That is why I created the Profitable Filmmakers Challenge. It is a 5-day experience to help you stop winging it and start running your film career like a business. In this 5-day challenge, you will learn how to create a real revenue strategy for your film, understand what investors actually want, develop effective ways to get distribution for your film, and pitch your project like the boss you are. So whether you're in development or in post-production or just have an idea scribbled on a napkin, this challenge will help you take your project to the next level. We're going to be taking actionable steps, so I will be giving you homework every night that you can apply to your film project. If you're feeling stuck making your pitch deck or creating a budget or understanding the best distribution options for your genre of film, then you definitely want to register as VIP, because as VIP, you get to join the call an hour earlier and get exclusive hot seat coaching and extra templates to set your film up for success. Make sure you register right away, and I will see you in the challenge. I'm so excited for you. I can't wait to see what you create, and I can't wait to see you start making money with your films. I'll see you in the challenge.
All right, so notice I said that these are on hand, not always included with your initial deck. And this should be really depending on who you're pitching to. I personally feel you should never put a budget in a deck, and I'm gonna explain why in a minute. But first, we're gonna break this down into segments so everyone understands clearly what a pitch deck should look like. And the first thing when someone looks at your pitch deck should be your cover page. And that cover page, it really should be eye-catching. It should really deal with the visual aesthetics of your film. Now, you don't have to stay married to these visual aesthetics, right? Because you're not sure maybe just yet. Maybe you've got your script and you kind of have an idea of what you're going to do from a business perspective, or you're creating a business plan for your film, but you haven't even thought about creating a mood board yet or a lookbook. You're just trying to put something together with what you see when you look at your script. So I should be able to look at your cover page for your pitch deck and know the genre of your film, right? So looking at these are from 2 of my projects. Clearly one is horror and clearly one is a holiday movie, right? There's no question as to what is what. And so we should be able to get that information from looking at your cover page, and the visual aesthetics for your deck should stay cohesive throughout. So because this is a horror movie and it's called Black Decay, I've got this little mold stuff happening, right? And the other one, I've got the Santa hats in the snow. Those visual aesthetics are going to continue throughout my deck. Usually on your cover page, it should have, if you have a production company, the name of your production company, the title of your film, and who is the writer of your screenplay is usually what goes on your cover page. Okay, and you don't necessarily need to put the director and all that yet, because we're gonna really talk about who that is later on in the deck. But giving acknowledgement to your screenwriter, if it's not you, is always good to have on your cover page. Next is your logline and synopsis page, right? And notice I'm still using pages from my own personal decks. So notice that visual aesthetic is carrying over into my logline and synopsis page. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about the log line and the synopsis, because I know this is where people get hung up. I'm not going to go deep into this. Again, that's something we'll be doing in the Filmmakers Business Bootcamp, but I want to touch on it a little bit because I know people get lost. So a log line is basically a 1 to 2 sentence summary of your film. And honestly, it's more like a 1 sentence summary, a one long sentence summary. I say 1 to 2 because sometimes, like if you do magical realism or a complicated sci-fi movie, sometimes one sentence may not be may not suffice to describe what your film is about, but you really want to try to keep it to one sentence if you can. And again, like I said, it could be a little bit of a longer sentence, but you want to try to keep it to one sentence. Okay. Now, for the most part, let's see here. Oh, so what goes into a log line? Let me see. There are 4 elements. First is your protagonist. Tell us about the main character in descriptive words, right? So what I mean by that is, you would start with, say, a narcissist butler, right? This story is about a narcissist butler, or this story is about a devoted son, or it's about a best-selling author. So it gives us an idea as to who your protagonist is as a person. Those are the ways that you introduce a protagonist in a log line. It should have your inciting incident. What happens to the main character to set the story in motion? That's what's going to get us excited about what's going on in your film. So we really need to know what the inciting incident is. It should have your protagonist's goal. What is the main character trying to achieve? And then what is the central conflict? Who or what is trying to stop them? And how does it tie into the theme of your film? This is your hook, right? It's that interesting part of your story that draws in the audience. And this is really important to master because I know a lot of people struggle with this, but I want you to think about your log line is like that quick elevator pitch. This is what you can throw out to be like, ooh, I want to know what that is about, right? That's that really quick summary that I think I sent out an email e-blast the other day saying, if you had that opportunity to talk to, let's say you saw that investor or some type of executive producer that you wanted to pitch to, and you saw them waiting at the valet to get their car, this is what you want to hit them with, that log line. So you need to be able to hook them. So you have to make sure that you're really stating that central conflict in a way that is going to hook them. And that's super important to get that log line down as concise as possible, because it also goes in your deck. And you notice I have both my log line. I'm gonna go back a second. Oh, don't put character names. Yes. Do not put character names. Lord help me. Your character, don't nobody know who your character is. So saying it's a story about, Sally as she embarks on it. Don't nobody know Sally. Give descriptive words to describe them. Do not give specific names, right? Save that for your synopsis, but your log line should not have a specific character's name unless, it's a franchise, right? It's a franchise where we know who Neo is, right? From the Matrix, right? So everybody knows who Neo is, right? But if they don't know, if it's your little indie film, we don't know who, Dr. Thomas is. Don't nobody know Dr. Thomas. So give us, a narcissistic doctor or a happy-go-lucky physician, right? That gives us more insight to who they are. Stating their name does nothing to help draw in the reader or whoever you're pitching to. So don't be that specific. Give us the general information, but let your description be specific, right? And it doesn't have to be no long, a cool, hot mama who always dresses like, no. Just give us like a quick descriptive word that will give us insight to who your protagonist is as a person, okay? And so I wanted to show you, just kind of going back. Let me see if I can go back really quick. Notice how on this page of my deck, The log line is tiny, right? It can fit in those little parentheses. That's intentional. Your log line should be the same. Notice the synopsis is a little more detailed depending on the film. The horror film is more complicated than the romantic comedy, but the log lines are short and concise. So you need to make sure that you're doing that and following these elements. Okay, so let's look at some examples to help make sure that this is making sense. And I pulled a couple from studio films and then one that's mine. So this first one is from Napoleon Dynamite. A listless and alienated teenager decides to help his new friend win the class presidency in their small Western high school while dealing with his bizarre family life back home. So we get an idea of who this kid is, right? He's listless and alienated. He decides to help his friend with the class presidency, right? In their very small Western town. So we kind of get an idea of the location even, while dealing with his bizarre family life back home. We're interested, we get an idea of what's going on, we get an idea of the environment, we get an idea of this is going to be interesting because he's got a bizarre family life, but there's no names listed, right? There's no specifics. It gives us just enough information to be intrigued. This one is from American Fiction, a novelist who's fed up with the establishment profiling, I think that was a typo on my bad. Establishment profiling from Black entertainment uses a pen name to write a book that propels him into the heart of the hypocrisy and madness he claims to disdain. Okay, so we get an idea of who the person is. This is a novelist who's fed up with how Black folks are profiled in entertainment. So he decides that he's gonna, have a pen name that propels into the heart of hypocrisy, right? So he's gonna do something to kind of feed into that hypocrisy that he says he doesn't like. Okay, so now we've got some conflict going on, and it makes us, okay, wait, what is he doing? What's going to happen in this movie? Let me read the synopsis to get more information, right? Next, this is from my holiday movie, holiday romantic comedy. Spooked by the holiday season, a zodiac-obsessed naturopath, doubting her fiance is her soulmate, enlists her heartbroken best friend to join her in a whimsical quest through an online dating service to find true love. All kinds of conflicts happen in there, right? So you already know this person is obsessed with zodiacs, and then they're a naturopath, so they believe in the earth and the moon and Mercury being in retrograde and all that stuff, right? And then her best friend is brokenhearted, and she has her go on this online dating thing with her because it's the holidays, right? And she feels like something ain't right between her and her fiance. Maybe we should just try this and see what happens. All kinds of conflict that we can get from that. And it's like, wait, a zodiac obsessed naturopath, what the hell is that, right? So it hooks us in, it makes us want to know what's happening or what's going to happen in this film. And you can tell pretty much by these log lines what type of films they are, right? So it's really important to think about that. Again, don't need character names, don't need to say, from a city that was encrusted with da-da-da-da-da. Like, sometimes I've seen log lines that I was like, okay, this is like a paragraph, but okay. So really trying to be as concise as possible. And if you need to write it like that to get it all out, I think there's nothing wrong with that. But then you want to make sure that you're coming back to making it concise.
If you're a filmmaker who's just trying to keep everything together from pre-production, production, post, trying to understand location scouting, casting, even the business side of filmmaking, all that stuff, and you're just like, I don't even know how to keep all these things straight in my head, then you definitely should get my book, The Ultimate Feature Film Production Planner. This is more than just a planner. It is a step-by-step guide to thinking about how to create a business plan for your film, how to start figuring out your budget for your film, actually scheduling things for your film. There's areas to take random doodles and notes. You have areas where you can do monthly reflections to kind of pat yourself on the back with the things that you've accomplished and kind of look at what still needs to be done. You can do some mind mapping to map out things that you want to achieve. I mean, everything you could possibly need to make your film is in this book. This book is a lot. It's 299 pages, but it also is a planner. So you can schedule out your days of the week and even has little quotes and affirmations to help keep you encouraged. So if you want to be inspired, if you're trying to figure out how to stay on task, you're just not clear on certain things when it comes to post-production, production, or even pre-production, then you want to get my book, The Ultimate Feature Film Production Planner. It will walk you through step by step everything you need to do to make a feature film.
All right, so let's talk about a synopsis. So what goes into the synopsis? So a synopsis is basically, it should summarize the main events of the film in a clear and concise manner. Notice the word that keeps coming up is concise, right? And I know some of you love to write all the beautiful words, but being as concise as possible in your decks is super important, because I'm gonna tell you right now, people aren't gonna read all of that. And you will turn them off if you're not really sticking to the nuggets that are important to get the funding that you want. Okay, so your synopsis is basically going to summarize the main events of the film in a clear and concise manner. It should have basically, you want to make sure that it has a beginning, right, which introduces the main characters, the setting, and the initial conflict. That should be in the beginning, right? Then the middle should include describe the main action, including key plot points, developments, and complications, okay? And then at the end, you should have a resolution to the main conflict, explaining how the story concludes. Like, I know some of you feel like you are giving away the ending of your movie. You know, you don't want to tell them how it's going to, you want to leave it like this mystery, but these are people who are trying to decide if they want to give you money. So you need to tell them what happens in your movie, right? It shouldn't be a mystery. Some things, you know, I talk about this sometimes when we have scriptwriter circle, and you'll see that people are leaving things out in their description. They're like, well, that's because I want the audience to be surprised. Yeah, but your crew can't be surprised, right? They got to know, so we know how to execute it. It's the same with your deck. You can't leave it as this surprise, because half the time, I will tell you, they don't read your script. They're going to determine if they're going to give you money based on your pitch deck and honestly meeting you, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So make sure you put that information in your synopsis. It doesn't have to be a full-on detail, but give us an idea of what happens at the end to keep us intrigued and want to give you money. Okay. All right. So next we have our cast wish list, or our attached talent. And this basically, on this page, it should include any recognizable talent. Oh, not there yet. You want to include any recognizable talent that you would love to have in your movie, or maybe you know them already. You know, some of you may know them already, or maybe you've already been pitching to them and you have a letter of intent, or, you know, they're telling you, yes, I'm interested in being, they may not have given you an actual letter of intent, but they may have said, yeah, you know, I love the concept of your movie. I want to be in it. So this is kind of where you would put that cast wish list. Now, these are people who will draw the audience because of their popularity. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a celebrity or a famous person. It could just be a social media influencer that you love, that has a lot of following, that you could definitely say to a potential investor, look, this person has a lot of followers. People are going to want to see a movie that they're in. I know we will do well if we cast this person. So this is kind of where you would put that list. Now, when you're thinking about who you want to go in your cash wish list, there's a couple things to keep in mind. One, have realistic expectations. So unless you have an Oscar-worthy script or a personal relationship, the likelihood of you getting Viola Davis or Taraji P. Henson is slim. Okay, I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying it's slim. These are A-list actors who have big goals, right? They're very cognizant of the type of roles they pick now based on where they want to go. So unless one of them is dealing with major tax evasion and now or, you know, child support issues, like I think Tyrese is doing all these indie movies because he got to pay all that child support he was crying about, right? So yeah, you can probably get Tyrese, but you're probably not going to be able to get Viola. Unless something financially happens in her life, she's probably not going to do your indie film. And it isn't because she don't think you're amazing, it's because she's got her own goals. So set realistic expectations for yourself, okay? Also, you got to keep in mind, can you afford them, okay? Depending on your budget, some names are more expensive than others. I could tell you right now, Angela Bassett's day rate is going to be way higher than Tamala Jones, okay? And it's all about who they are as actors and where they're at. So think about what you can realistically afford. Okay, where is your budget? Is this a person that you can afford to have be in your movie? Have them play a small role that has a big impact. I have seen this happen a lot where people will pick a name and they'll want them to be the lead. But if the lead is in every scene, that name is going to be super expensive. And even if they're, and I hate using the term A-list, C-list, B-list. I just think that's nonsense. I think just people have opportunities that afford them to be, have more jobs. You know, I don't necessarily like that list thing, but for the sake of explaining for class, if you have an actor who's maybe considered a C-list actor, you know, they can still increase your budget significantly if they're in every scene. So you want to really think about how can you utilize the popularity of this person, maybe put them in, you know, some smaller scenes that you could shoot in 1 or 2 days, but can have a significant impact. So you can still get that draw, right? So now we're talking business. This is business moves. This isn't even part of the creative process. Now we're thinking about how can I get the impact I need to make the money to pay back my investors. They want to know that you're thinking like that. So being smart about the people that you're thinking about reaching out to is super important. The other thing I would say is cast a name in a non-typical role. If you are lucky enough to, let's say, get someone who is super recognizable, sometimes if they're always typecast in a specific role, then they're more willing to work at a lower rate with you because you've thought of them in a different way. A great example, like you see on my deck right here, is Jeremy Meeks. I had the opportunity of working with Jeremy. He used to be known as Prison Bae, right? Because he had the sexy mugshot that everybody was in love with him, and he started modeling and acting. Unfortunately, though, because Jeremy has a lot of tattoos, he's always cast as a thug, and he's sick of it. He don't want to be a thug anymore. He told me on set, I'm so tired of playing these roles. And he's actually a really nice person and a nice guy. And I said, well, what's your dream role, Jeremy? He said, I want to be a romantic lead. You know, I want to be the lead in a romantic movie or a romantic comedy. I was like, huh, okay, so I got you, Jeremy. I got you, right? And in the movie that I worked with him on, he actually played a loving dad. And so he's tired of playing these roles. If you can find actors like that, some actors are always cops, right? They're always typecast as cops. If you can find those people, one, they have a draw, right? He has a following and a draw. He does a lot of BET movies. So paying attention to that too. Where are they placed? What's their draw? And how can I utilize that to my advantage and hit this person up and say, hey, or, you know, they've always wanted to act, right? Tabitha has made it very clear that she wants to act. Now she's making moves to act on her own. But if you hear a social media influencer that you follow say, my dream is to act, then guess what? Think about including them, right? Including them in your deck and seeing if you can reach out to them or get them. Because I'm gonna tell you, the more that these type of people keep saying, I want to act and I want to do stuff, somebody's gonna snatch them up, and soon their rate will be unaffordable. I promise you that's what's going to happen. So make sure you're thinking about that. All right. What else do I have here? Okay, so next, what goes in your deck is basically, oh, one other thing I was going to say about that before I forget. Let me go back because I skipped it. Also, think about who your investor may have in mind, or if they have their own celebrity in mind, because I've also seen this happen where, you know, there was this investor who he was in love with Alfre Woodard, and he was like, anything that she's attached to, he was willing to invest in. And so it's like, hey, if you can get her, you know, you were guaranteed that financial contribution. So, you know, you may want to look at that too. It also can help with your negotiating power with your potential investor. Okay, if I get this person that you absolutely love, are you able to give an additional $50,000 or additional $100,000? And maybe I'll give you a cameo with her, right? He could play the bartender. I don't know if there's that scene in here, but you know what I mean? Find a role. If you get stuff like this, make a role. If they can say one line, oh, can I take your order, ma'am? they'd be so excited. Your investor would be so excited that they got to do that across from this person that they admire or like. So think about that too. If the investor or potential investor has someone that they really admire or like, then that might be someone that you want to reach out to. Also, think about where your film is going to go, right? So we talk about this a lot when you have a business plan, right? But when you make a business plan for your film, which again, we're not going to deep dive into this now, but we talk about it in the business boot camp. When you have a business plan for your film, you need to be thinking about where it's going to live once you make it. These are thoughts that need to be happening, honestly, you should kind of be thinking about when you're working on the script. But even when you're done with that script, you need to be thinking about where is it going to live. And why that's important in your deck is because certain actors have appeal on certain streaming platform and networks, right? So kind of going back to Jeremy, he does a lot on BET Plus. So I know if my film fits on BET Plus, if it's a holiday movie that BET would be interested in, then having Jeremy in my deck is smart, because they already know he has a draw, right? If you have a artist or excuse me, an actor who they do a lot of Hallmark movies and your movie would fit perfectly on Hallmark, then put those actors in your deck, right? So look for the people who fit where you think your movie will go. Because sometimes, even though they're not big names, those streaming platforms and networks would be excited because they already know they have a draw. People like Christian Keys is always on BET, right? So looking for those people is super important, and seeing if you can get them. Who's always on Hulu? Who's always on Hallmark? Start looking at that. All right, so now going to production team. So the next page in your deck should really be introducing your team. And this is where you're going to present your director, your producer. A lot of times for this one, we are the writer and director, but if you had a separate writer, you may feature them as well. But this is the page where you're going to basically feature those people. You're just going to put a photo of them, their name, what their role is, and a brief their brief bio. Okay, I know mine's not that brief, but brief bio is what you want to put. And I actually shrunk it down to make it fit there. Is what you want. And then after that, it's just a contact page. And I personally don't put my phone number on my contact page, mainly because I'm a woman and I don't want everybody to have my phone number like that. But an email somewhere where they could, maybe your website, if you have a place where they can view your reel or your other work, I would definitely recommend creating a website and putting your stuff on there. It just makes it easier, because you definitely want to have some type of visual reference so that they can see what you can do. Now, if you don't have that yet, if you're just kind of getting started, at least put your email address on there. Okay. And then, once you start talking to people, then you'll give them your phone number and all that stuff. But I'm just cognizant in case that's going out. Notice how I kept that real simple. That's all that goes in the decks that I send out. These are totally basic decks. Now, I know some of you are thinking, well, wait a minute, Landi, don't I need to add the director's vision, character description, market analysis, comparable films, all my ideas about how it's going to look? Absolutely not, right? Do not put all that stuff in a minimal budget. Keep it simple. The more simple you can keep it, the better. And honestly, there is a place for some of that stuff. Notice I didn't even include a budget, right? And I feel like it really depends on who you're pitching to. If you're pitching to a potential investor that is not in the film industry, like I have a friend who got money from his dentist. He got a lot of money from his dentist. I don't even know how how did he even start talking to him about needing money is beyond me. But his dentist gave him $100,000 for his indie film. Okay. Dentists don't know nothing about, high versus low contrast and lookbooks or anything like that. The only thing that he cares about is, what is my return on my investment? What is it about? Is it something of interest? And could he have a cameo in the movie? That's it. That's all he cared about. Right? So you may be able to get money from a real estate agent, your dentist, your rich auntie, whoever, and they're not going to care about all those visual aesthetics or your director's bio. They may be cute, be like, oh, that's cute. But a true investor, right? A true investor says she got a dentist appointment. I love it. A true investor, they are more concerned about you know, what's the movie about? Who are the names that are attached? They are going to want to know a budget, but we're going to talk about that in a second. And what's their return on investment? Those are the things they care about. If you're just pitching to a regular person who's not necessarily in the film industry, okay? So the more you bog down your deck with all that unnecessary information, it makes it much harder for someone who really doesn't understand all that stuff. And you could make them lose interest. And to be honest with you, like even that holiday movie that I showed you guys the deck, my executive producers are shopping that movie to network with just that basic deck. They're not giving them all that extra stuff. Okay, so keep it simple is super important. All right, so from there, I would say, let's talk a little bit about budget. Why you should not include a budget in a deck. I am a firm believer, do not put your budget in your deck. And the reason why is, first off, budgets are negotiable. If you put that in writing, then you are locked into that number. And I will tell you, my budget changes depending on who I'm talking to, right? So if I am talking to someone who I think I can get more money out of, I'm going to say one number. If I'm talking to somebody else who I know, you know, it's a little limited, I'm going to say another number, right? So for example, if I know I want to pitch my holiday romantic comedy to BET, since we were just talking about that, right? I know on average, and this is where you have to do your homework and your research. I know on average, BET for their original content for movies will give between $250,000 to $300,000, right? So they're not giving $1 million for those type of movies. So I'm not going to pitch them 500,000 or $1 million because I'm pricing myself out, right? So I've done my research to know how much money they're allocating to things that they're calling original content, meaning they funded them. So now they're going to say it's their original content. Same with Tubi Originals. Tubi now is starting to shoot their own things or acquire things, right? So you can pitch your script to them and they will pay for it. They'll pay to have the movie made, but they're not going to go on $1 million budget, right? They're going to probably stay within that 250 to 300,000 range. So you want to make sure that you're not locking yourself into a number that can either pitch you out or under, right? That's the other thing. Sometimes you may lowball yourself. So not having it in there is super important so that you don't get stuck like that. Get to know your potential investors. Like I was just saying, know what it is so that you have more negotiating power, right? And that negotiating process, try to get to know them, especially once you're getting into bed with these people, right? Because sometimes I know corporate investors will push their agenda on you. And I've actually had this happen to me with my documentary that I had to step away because they were trying to make me say things that made me uncomfortable that I didn't want to say, specifically because my documentary is about prostate cancer in Black men. And I wasn't comfortable with the things they were trying to get me to say. And so I stepped away. And so you need to be cognizant of that. And I know sometimes that money is enticing and you're thinking, ooh, you know, but the money's good. Be smart because you're married to these people, right? For the life of your movie. And you don't want to get yourself in a situation that you now feel like you can't go anywhere. They're controlling everything, right? So make sure you do your due diligence and do your research on potential investors. Have realistic expectations. And I've seen filmmakers who have never made not even a short before, create decks that have $1 million budgets. And I just have to say that is an unrealistic expectation. And again, I don't believe in telling nobody they can't do something. I really, really don't. But if you've never handled $1 million budget, nobody's giving you $1 million. You are a high risk investment. Films, period, are high risk investments, right? So you are an even higher risk if you've never handled a budget of that magnitude. So you want to start with something that makes more sense. You have to show what you can do. I always like to use the analogy of, you know, when people think that they can do that just because I like to say, think of it like open heart surgery, right? You've watched open heart surgery on I don't know, on Grey's Anatomy, right? You watch someone do an open heart surgery on Grey's Anatomy. Maybe you watch some YouTube videos. Now you're telling your friend, I could do your open heart surgery. I got you because I've watched it and I know what to do. Absolutely not. And it's the same when you tell somebody, oh yeah, here's my $1 million budget. how do they know that you're going to be able to handle that much money? And even if it's not, let's say, maybe you haven't done a lot of shorts, but you've handled $1 million project, right? So that's still some negotiating power. I've handled, maybe live events that were 1 million plus where I had to manage this, and this. Now they'll feel a little more comfortable with you. But if you've never managed that kind of money, you've maybe shot one short, and that was paid for by you and your cousin, I would be scared. I would be very, very scared. So think about it from putting yourself in that investor's shoes. They want to make sure that they can get that money back. And to be honest with you, I've actually seen filmmakers blow the money and had no way of showing how they allocated those funds. And that is cause for lawsuit. So, and if you ain't got it to give it back, you don't want to be in those shoes. So make sure you have realistic expectations. Have funding goals. So be prepared to discuss how you plan to allocate the funds. People like to know where their money is going, right? If you're handling it, which is what I was just kind of talking about. So know where it's going. Also, what can you bring to the table? Most private investors don't want to be your sole funding source. They want to know that you have some skin in the game or other sources to help fund your movie. So again, we're not going to deep dive into this right now. We'll talk more about it in the Filmmakers Business Bootcamp, but I just want to kind of get these things rolling in your head. Also, have an itemized budget available that can be presented. So I don't put my budget in the deck, but I do have it on hand so that, in the first part of sending someone my deck, or if I'm meeting with them, I give a verbal number. And that's why I joke about, I got 2 different numbers, right? So we'll have just a verbal number in the conversation. And then later, if it looks like this negotiation is going to go somewhere, then I would provide an itemized budget at a later date. With that being said, hire a line producer to do your budget for you. They're going to break down your script and we'll do a line item budget. And this is super important because a lot of times a line producer will know how to add items and things for each department that you may not know, especially if you're a newer filmmaker. You may not know how much a light costs or how much a lens costs or how much, a dolly is going to cost, or why you need this lens versus a zoom lens versus a prime lens. And so you want someone who understands that, because the line producer's job is to know the cost of everything in every department. So hiring a line producer will get you a more accurate budget than if you just try to do it yourself based on what you're thinking. And we're talking feature films now. So if it's your short film, oh my God, do not hire a line producer. Just do that yourself. It's a great way to learn. But if you're trying to really get funding and get a feature film done, then I would highly recommend you do that. All right, so that's just for a basic deck. Now, let's say you're pitching to a creative. I would say if you're pitching to a creative, it is a little different. And by that, I mean a creative executive producer like a Issa Rae or a Jason Blumhouse, right? If you're pitching to those kind of people, then you might want to include slides like show them, and my slides are out of order, I think. Yeah, all right, what happened to my other slide? I messed something up. I missed a slide. Oh, no, it's right there. Okay. You might want to have things like visual references, right? So you might want to have what your mood board or concept is for your film, because they're going to be interested in that. Creative producers love that stuff. They want to see, what is your vision? How do you plan to do it? And these are super old slides from a movie years ago. So that's why some of those old movies are on there. But think about that. What are the visual references for a creative producer? Director's vision. Creative producer is going to want to know that you have a vision for your film and how you plan to execute it. What's your inspiration? What do you hope to accomplish from this film? Those type of creative producers, they want to know that, right? Comps, they're going to want to know about your comps. Definitely someone like a Jason Blumhouse, right? If you got a horror movie and you're trying to pitch to Blumhouse, he's going to want to know, what movies are comparable to yours and how much money did they generate and bring in. And I will say with that, I know with the streaming platforms now, it's much harder to get that information. I think that was part of the whole fight with the strike and all that good stuff. It's hard to know that. But if you can, try to get as much information as you can. There are websites like The Numbers where you can get some of that information in regards to kind of what they did. Also, try to pick comps that are, again, realistic. So If your movie is, I don't know, about a group of women traveling and on a road trip, and they run into all kinds of crazy shenanigans, don't pick Girls Trip, right? Because Girls Trip was all, it was all A-list actors. So your movie, unless you can afford all those actors, is not really comparable. Yes, the story might be comparable, but how much money your movie will be able to draw is not comparable to that because of the named celebrities that are in that movie. So those are something that you have to think about too when you're selecting comps. It's not just about how many people, but it's also, or excuse me, it's not just about, being similar, but it's also about who the talent is in your movie that has a box office draw. Some people will go see anything that a certain actor is in just because they love the actor, right? They'll go see Denzel or whoever. And so you got to keep that in mind as well. Also, try to pick comps that aren't super old. So, try to stay in that 5 to 10 year range if you can, because anything that's older than that, it's hard to say that, it would still do well in today's market. Also, don't say there's no comps. That is the worst thing you could say to somebody who is a creative producer or owns a production studio. If you're pitching to a studio, don't say there's nothing like my movie. That does not get them excited. It makes them nervous. The industry likes things that are similar, right? They like to put us in a box that's similar. And even if your movie is different, right? There's nothing wrong with it being different. It's just understanding that they don't know how to market different. Right? They don't like hearing different freaks them out. That's why we got so many reimagined movies. It's like, oh, I know how this did, so we're gonna reimagine it and just see how it does now, right? So don't say, oh, there's nothing like it. Try to find something that's comparable to it if you're pitching to a creative producer. All right. So if you are pitching a documentary, those are a little different too. This is one of my documentaries. And notice that there's still a visual aesthetic to my cover page for this documentary. It's still, you can really see that it's going to have some type of emotional weight to it. So you want to make sure that you're sticking to a visual aesthetic, even if you're pitching a documentary, okay? So it should still have a cover page. It should still have a log line. It should still have a synopsis. Now, the one thing I will say that's a little bit, that's what I was supposed to say, it was compelling. Yes, the cover page should be compelling and draw to the theme. I will say in documentaries, one thing that's a little different with a synopsis, if any of you are thinking about pitching a documentary, especially if you're pitching to like a corporation or a pharmaceutical company or anything like that, they like statistics. Okay, so make sure you have some stats in your synopsis that makes relevant whatever your topic is. And especially if your topic is on anything that's about social, political, or medical issues or injustices, make sure you have some stats in there and that you can quote where those stats come from, because they like that stuff. Now, if you're just doing a documentary about your grandma or something like that, that's different. But if you are really doing something that's based in a social issue, you want to have some statistics in there. That is stuff that they absolutely love. Okay. And then just like in a narrative film, you would have the production team introduction page and then a contact page. Now, I would also recommend with documentaries, and again, I'm not going to deep dive into this because I know I'm almost at time. I would also recommend with documentaries that you definitely do a director statement, but it should be on video. Documentaries, they just like to see you engaged and hear from your voice why this movie is important, why you wanted to do this subject matter, what you hope to bring, what awareness do you hope to bring, especially if you're pitching, like I said, to big companies. I know that's what got me money from Pfizer is I did my whole little pitch, but I did a video and I used B-roll that, some were stock footage, some was just stuff we shot all around. And I'm, talking to the camera, but we incorporated these videos that tied to the theme of our movie, and we got a lot of attention. That's how I was able to screen at the national, the Black Caucus. That's how I was able to travel so much. That movie came out in 2017, and I still travel with it today based on what I did with my deck. Even though the movie's done, it's still in demand. And that's why now I have this one that we're working on right now, because now they want to give me funding to do a second documentary about African Americans and cancer. So know that these things can open doors for you. So really take your time to make sure that they're compelling, that you draw people in. Now, those additional slides I talked about for like a creative producer and things of that nature, don't put them in your deck initially. Have them made, right? Have that itemized budget made. Have those additional things with your director's vision and all that made, but I wouldn't necessarily put it in your deck. Right? Keep your deck simple. Do not bog it down. As you start to have these conversations and talk to people, that's when you figure out, okay, this person is more of a creative. They're going to be X, Y, and Z. Let me tell them, oh, you know what? I can provide you my director statement and some of the visuals of how we plan to execute this movie. Okay. So making sure that you're keeping to that will just help you exponentially, so that you have a more clean and concise deck and you're not bogging it down. Angela Davis.
Yes, thank you so much for having this. Angela Davis, Dayton, Ohio. I have a question. Your pitch decks looks amazing. Are you sending these pitch decks out, or are you, is this something that you take into a face-to-face meeting?
I have sent them out. So basically, I have two people who are kind of acting as executive producers for me, and they're shopping my projects. So I give it to them. And then when I go into a meeting, I would take it with me as well.
Thank you.
And one thing I do want to say about that, because I did forget, having all this information is great, but I've definitely gone into meeting. I had a meeting with Relativity back in the day, and I remember being very nervous. It was my first time having a meeting like this, and I had my deck and I had all this stuff. He didn't even look at it. He really just wanted to talk to me and get to know me. And that is a big part of it too. Sometimes they, want to make sure that you're not going to be somebody who's going to make them crazy if they take you on, right? So a lot of the time was spent just talking to me, and we maybe looked at the deck and talked about it for like maybe 10 minutes, but I was there for an hour and you didn't look at the deck. But yes, most of the time I don't just give it to anyone. It's definitely specific people that I know can shop my movie for me, or if I've met someone and have, established some type of rapport, and now I think, okay, well, let's see, we can do this. Is what I'm working with. That's who I'd give it to. That's a great question. Stacy, go ahead, Stacy.
Okay. Hi. So my question was, when you're introducing the crew and the crew is literally just yourself, does that make the investors hesitant or not really? If you're okay.
Because what you don't want to be is top heavy. What makes them hesitant, if they see that there are 5 producers already attached, then where's my money going to go? If I say to you, okay, I'm willing to give you 500,000, but I also want 15 points on the back end. If there are 5 producers already, that's going to affect my return. So the least amount of people they actually prefer, because then they know that and also it's a concern of how much fighting is there going to be. Right? So if you can, keep that down, it definitely helps tremendously.
Okay, thank you.
Is it, I'm going to butcher your name. So is it Arca Milton?
Hello, it's Eric.
Eric, sorry
Yes,
about that.
I'm sorry. You mentioned earlier about skin in the game, and I'm freshly out of high school, going to college in the fall. What is like your best recommendation for getting to this place that you are right now? I seem like I'm a bit immature to these people. I don't want to come off that way when I'm having discussions, especially in group settings like this. I don't want to seem younger or immature to everybody else.
Well, I could tell you, just listening to you talk, you don't sound immature. So the fact that you're even thinking about that, I think is awesome. I think to get skin in the game, you just got to be on set, pay attention, eyes wide open, follow people, learn as much as you can, take as many different roles on set as you can, be a PA, sit next to the script supervisor, ask them how they do their job, ask the first AD, see if they need help. The more you do that, the more you can expand your knowledge, the more you will be successful in this industry. I know for me, I started as a model, and then I went as an actress, and then singing, and then, went to photography school, and then, was like, oh, let me figure out cinematography because my cinematographer didn't show, right? And then, but all those skills combined helped me get here. So the more you can learn as you grow, the stronger you will be, and you'll be able to write your own ticket. So the fact that you're starting young is awesome. Hey, Mercedes.
Hi, Landi. I look ugly right now, but you can look at my picture. My question is, can you talk a little bit more about where you sent that video that was your director's statement? Did you play it in the pitch meeting with them, or did you send it previously?
I actually attached it to the email and sent it in an email. And now I will say, when I did this, I was super green when it came to I was green, period, when I did that. Because it took us 6 years to make that documentary, just because we were using our own money initially. And knowing what I know now, I would have did it sooner, but I did it after because I didn't know no better. And so we spent all those years working on the movie. And then when we were close to done, that's when I sent it out. But they got me connections to people I had no reach for. So I would say do it in this process. Also, some of them had people who were people for prostate cancer and stuff that they wanted to see if I would put in the movie. But I was like, I did this for 6 years. I'm not doing it. I'm done. I don't want to shoot anymore. I don't want to do cancer no more. Right. So I would say send it out. Send it out in an email, include it, especially if now I'm talking about reaching out to companies. Like I was reaching out to national nonprofits, not local ones, because local nonprofits don't have money, but the national nonprofits, they have money in relationships. So I reached out to American Cancer Society. I just reached out to everybody because I didn't know no better. And the video is what compelled them to read the deck, to look at the deck.
That's really helpful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Shantae.
Hey, that's a perfect segue to my question. So I'm working on my pitch deck to reach out to companies. So thank you for that, reaching out to national corporations. My question is, my film is done, and for the most part, so I'm wondering what differences there would be between the pitch deck you just showed us and a pitch deck for a completed film.
I think for a completed film, one, the cool thing you have as an advantage is you can include scenes from your film in your video, which you should do. Two, you can talk about the journey of making the film and how it affected you in your deck. You would basically, because documentary decks are a little different in the synopsis because there's no story or character to follow. So you're mainly, although yours is narrative, you're using a narrative film. That's right. Your film's not a documentary. So I would still include the synopsis, but in your synopsis, include how it ties into people who are actually dealing with issues of suicide ideation. You know what I mean? Because now you're telling them how they can use your film as a conduit to reach those communities. So yours is a little different. And what I would put into the synopsis is, this is what the film's about, and this is how it can be of service within the community. And then also reiterate that in your video. So for you guys to know, she did a narrative short film in one of our programs about suicide, but I told her when we saw it, because it was so good, that this would be a great film for nonprofits who deal with people who are struggling with suicide to use for an example, to help people who may not understand suicide ideation. And they eat stuff like this up. So if you have a film that could connect to anything, that could be a social injustice or have to do with advocacy in some form, even if it is narrative, nonprofits will want it because they struggle to reach the communities, and film is a great way to do it.
I have a part two to that question. It's really quick. So right now, I'm in New York. I'm actually doing research for the program that I'm creating so that I can pitch it as a cohesive project to the different organizations, nonprofit schools, etc. So I'm actually working on a mock-up of a workbook that would be used. My question is, do you think it's a good idea to include that, or should I hold that for the people who are interested?
I would say I wouldn't include it in my pitch, but when you get a meeting, talk to them about it. Because what I will tell you what happens, the nonprofits can be just like corporations. They're very picky about, they may want to put their logo on it. So you'll have to decide if you're okay with that. Like for me, I had to put at the end of my film that I had a general hotline, but the organization that got me out there, they're called Zero, the End of Prostate Cancer. Like, can you change that and put our hotline? I was like, yes. And then we were at an event and I had some they were like, can you just put our pamphlets out? And I was like, okay, yeah. So you're going to probably run into some stuff like that. Or they're going to ask, can they review it? Because they have legal that they have to answer to. So they may want to review it and give you feedback on it, or ask you to incorporate certain things and put their logo. So know that those discussions are going to come up, because they have to be careful what they attach themselves to from a legality standpoint. But I don't think it hurts to present it when you take a meeting, but I wouldn't put it in the deck. That's a good question.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. Is it Balogi Stephen? I'm sorry if I butchered your name.
That's all right. It's Bologi Stephen. Hi, thank you for the session. My question is with regards to, sharing the entire the story in the synopsis. You mentioned the beginning, the middle, and the end. So should a filmmaker be concerned about, letting your idea out there to say, okay, what if they choose not to invest in my project, but then take my idea?
I know that's always a fear. I know it's always a fear.
Is that just a risk you have to deal with when pitching?
Because I'm gonna tell you, like, I know one of the people who is shopping my movies right now, she don't sign NDAs, and she makes it clear I don't. And the reason why is she's like, I see so much stuff, because she used to work at OWN, and then she used to work at Revolt. She was just like, I've seen so much stuff. Sometimes I don't remember what's what, but I don't want there to be a problem because I read your script and then I read somebody else's script, and then they're like, well, you read mine, now you're on that, you know what I mean? So she's like,
Yeah.
it's just easier that I don't have any problem. So it's not always they're not doing it because they plan to do something sneaky. Sometimes it's, technically there isn't anything new under the sun. But if it's exactly like yours, I feel you on that. But you are going to have to take a risk if you want to seek an investor, I mean. And here's the thing, even with putting your synopsis, I'm not saying, when I say beginning and middle and end, I'm not saying get every specific detail. There are certain things, if you gave, we got 71 people on this call. If each one of you were given the same, line or same story premise, each one of you would have a different way of telling that story, right? So you're just surmising it. The reason why I say beginning, middle, and end is what happens a lot of times is people just put phrases that are hinting at what it's about. And then you're like, okay, so what happens to this? You know what I mean? Like they're trying to leave it a mystery. And so you want it to be concise, that it makes sense. But I'm not saying give every specific detail. Hope that helps.
Yeah.
I know it's kind of scary. All right. Is it, I'm going to butcher your name. I apologize. Is it Ajartu Thomas? Are you there?
Hey, Landi, it's Aja. It's
Oh, hi.
Aja.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good.
Awesome. I'm sorry, I really want to be at that class in
No
July. I have a funeral. I don't know if you're going to have another one. That's my first question, Aja. And my other question is, I'm in over. My other question is, when it comes to etiquette, when you want to pitch a project, is it etiquette? Can you just pitch one, or you can pitch more than one when you have the opportunity to meet someone?
I say have 2 or 3 in your back pocket, because sometimes what happens is there could have to, so the point of someone else that was just speaking, they could have something else that's similar. And they're like, you know, I love it, which is really what happened to us with Relativity. He was like, I love it, but we actually have something that's kind of in that vein already. What else do you have? And we didn't have anything else. And I was like, damn. Right? So have, you know, come with whatever the meeting was scheduled for, and even throw out, you know, and you know, if the conversation's flowing and you guys have like are getting this like nice rapport, have some others in your back pocket just in case. Hey, you know, we also have da 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 da, and we have these that we can. And even if you don't have the deck done, girl, act like you do. And you know what? We also have this, this, and this. And if you'd like, I can have the deck to you by Friday, and then go home and work on that deck. But yeah, I feel like the more you have in your back pocket, the more appealing you are to investors because they want to know. And honestly, that's why I have both decks for those movies, because I was shocked. Like I actually was pitching the horror movie and he's like, oh, do you have anything holiday? And I was like, dang, really? I'm not a huge holiday fan. A friend of mine convinced me to turn that into a holiday movie. But that's the one that's getting the most attention, not my horror, which I was really surprised. So you never know. That's a great question. Good to see you, Aja. Lisa Scott, my girl. How you doing, Lisa?
Hey, hi, Landi, how you doing? I see you every other day. It's
I
great.
know.
No, I just wanted to chime in with Shantae was talking about her pitch deck, but she said she already shot it. So I wanted to say this. If you already shot it, the trailer is more important. The pitch deck's no longer needed for you to put your project out there. You make the best trailer you can make.
Well, for her, it's a little different though, because she's trying to reach nonprofits. So hers is not necessarily for
yeah, but she already shot it.
Yeah, but she has to show them how her movie can benefit the audience they're trying to reach, which is different. So for a nonprofit, if you have a narrative film, right, you've got to kind of sell them on how your film can benefit them. And that's different than if you're trying to get an investor using the trailer so they can see that they can make money off of your film and get you distribution. This is getting to a place where they can use her film as an educational tool. So she's got to pitch that in a deck. They're going to require that of her. And that's what I had to do. When I did mine, my movie was done. The Silent Killer, it took us 6 years to make that movie. When I started doing the pitch deck, because I didn't know no better. I was doing things all backwards. I was like, oh, right. And I was like, dang, because they're like, oh, we could get you this, we could get you that. They gave me money to make a short version because it was a feature. So they paid me to make a short version of the movie. But that's why she needs a deck, because her situation's a little different than average. Otherwise, you'd be absolutely correct.
Well, I may not be right, but I am never wrong.
She's so crazy. For those who don't know Lisa.
Okay,
Lisa,
good luck with your project, Shantae.
They're gonna be like, who is this lady? No, Lisa's a friend, and she is a WLCF member who runs helps me run Script Writer Circle, dynamic writer. So she's just teasing me right now. All right. Okay. Well, are there any other questions? If not, we're going to wrap up. I know we went over because, like I said, I like to talk. Who said?
Yeah,
Oh,
we do have one more question from Angela. She said she would come on screen to ask.
oh, okay.
She put
Okay.
in.
And I see Shantae's hand again too. Go ahead, Angela. Uh-oh, what happened to you? Oh, that's me. There you go. There you go. There you go. Sorry about that.
Yeah, you were silencing me.
I'm sorry.
So I did have a question because I didn't realize that nonprofits could fund narratives. And I've done some like videos and things for nonprofits, and they like during COVID, and they had to approve the script to make sure that it fit all their guidelines and all their beliefs. Right. So when you're doing a narrative and you want funding from a nonprofit, are they reviewing and approving the script to make sure it kind of fits the story that they're trying to tell?
I think it depends on the situation. So that's where I said you got to figure out how much involvement you want from them. So like both me and Shantae our films were done when we approached them.
Okay.
So the rule's a little different. However, they did ask me to make some changes. And especially since they're still using my film, they actually gave me some more money to update some of the statistics, because like I said, it came out in 2017, we're now in 2024. The rate that Black men are getting prostate cancer, unfortunately, that number hasn't changed, but some of the other stats had. So they paid me to make those changes in the film. So they will have some requests for sure. Now, if your film hasn't been shot yet, documentaries don't normally have full-on scripts, but they have outlines. So they may ask you to include some things that fit whatever it is their objective is. But most of the time, if they take on your film, it's because what you put in your deck is in line with what it is they're trying to achieve. So, but there are definitely going to be some, we need clearance, like you won't be able to screen it till they watch it and legal approves it. You're definitely that kind of stuff. You're absolutely right.
One other question to go with that. How, and if you're free to answer, how much money are nonprofits willing to give, not for documentaries, but for narratives?
I think it depends on the nonprofit. I will say what will more than likely happen is they're going to connect you to their sponsors, because usually they don't have a lot of money. Now, and that's kind of what happened with me. I got to Pfizer through the nonprofit. Right? I didn't have a relationship with Pfizer. You know, they introduced me to the nonprofit, but what they got me was exposure. So, you know, screening for the Black Caucus, going to DC, they got me all these locations, all that stuff. And then because of me, they started a film series. They called it the Black Film Series. So they found 2 other filmmakers, and they started screening our films and paying us to travel nationwide. So that you never know what doors can be open. But I will say, on average, nonprofits don't have funding. It's their sponsors.
Sponsor. Got it. Thank you.
Go ahead, Shantae.
Yes. I wanted to, first, Lisa, yes, I will include the trailer. I'm sending it to multiple people, multiple institutions, nonprofits, community colleges, whoever wants to use the doggone film and the program, really, when it comes down to it. But Landi, I would love for you to share. So this whole workshop, which is great, thank you, this is amazing, talks about putting together the pitch. But I would love for you to share your guidance on, what did I write? I wrote in the chat, who to select, like how to choose who you partner with, and how to be careful with who you choose to partner with, especially depending on your budget. You know, I don't want to say it, I want you to say it.
Yes, and yes. And when you say partner, are you talking about as far as funding partners? Are you talking about people who are gonna, because your film's already made, but tell me which partnership, because I got warnings for all. Tell me which partnership you're referring to.
I would say go into all of it. I mean, specifically, I was thinking production. So you pitch it to people, you pitch it to investors, maybe you're pitching it to a producer, and a producer comes on, and you know, you maybe have $100,000 film, and they usually do $2 million films. You get where, but share it all.
Yes, so good. That's a good point. So especially if your film has a large budget. So if you know your film, and you know how I joked about, you know, having $1 million budget. If you know your film really needs that type of budget, then you are going to have to partner with someone who has handled that kind of money. They're not going to give it to you. That's why a lot of times you'll see third-party production companies come in. And you need to make sure before you get in bed with that person that there's somebody you want to be in bed with, you know, because there are always things that come up. Again, you know, it's funny, the things that even, you know, I thought it would be different working in a documentary and working with hospitals and stuff, but I literally sat in meetings where they argued over whose name came first. And I was just like, who cares? You know what I mean? Like, I don't care that, like, Landi, do you mind if you're third? No, I don't. I just wanted the movie to play. Like, they argued over whose name comes first. So know that those things are going to happen. Make sure that you're picking a partner that when it's good, when it's bad, when it's ugly, when the sweat and tears need to happen, that you guys can uplift each other, and that you cater to each other's weaknesses, right? Don't pick somebody who's just like you. do not pick somebody who's just like you. If you know you're a creative person that believes in butterflies and rainbows and 4 + 2 could equal 10 if you dream and hope and pray, then you cannot pick another person like that. You need somebody who got some sense that's like, no, that's fine. Okay. So if you, you know what I mean? You have to have someone who thinks linearly, who's going to be, thinking about all the statistics and things of that nature, because when you don't, what will happen is you two butterfly people are not going to know how to handle the actual linear stuff that needs to be done, and you're going to have issues, or it's going to create conflict. So you got to have people that balance out your weaknesses. It's super important if you're looking for a partner, especially in production. And this is in business, in production, and everything. Now, when you're looking at companies, and you're looking for corporate sponsors, you are going to have to give up some. First of all, if you get any type of investor, know that comes with giving something up. And you have to decide how much you're willing to give. Because nobody's going to invest in you just because you're cute and give you money and say, okay, and you just give me the money back whenever you can. That's not how that's going to work. They're going to want something. And it could be product placement. It could be points on the back end, right? They could be a higher percentage of your movie. It could be putting their name in your movie. And do your due diligence and research on that. We almost ran into an issue, and I was so glad I caught it before, where we were, working with these doctors. They had this awesome thing happening where they were going into barbershops and talking about prostate cancer. Well, one of them was in trouble for Medicare fraud. And so, we were attaching these doctors, their faces and names, so we're not to take him off, because I was like, oh my gosh, you know what I mean? So make sure you do your research on who you're partnering with, who you're letting talk about your film. Think about what you want to give. Like I mentioned, one of the companies, they were asking me to do things that I was uncomfortable with, and they actually were kind of rude to one of my doctors when we had a screening at LA Film School. And so I was like, I'm done with them. You're not going to cut. This man is volunteering his time. He don't have to be here, and you're not going to talk to him like that. So I dropped them, and I ain't had no money to be dropping folks. That's the other thing. I just was like, I could see that this is going to be a problem as we continue. So I was done with it. So really look at all, do your due diligence, do your research, try to make sure you have people who complement your weaknesses, and think about what you're willing to give, because you're going to have to. That was a great question, Shante. Is it Vion? Is that how you say your name?
I don't know. Can you hear me? That's it. You said it like Dion with a V.
Awesome. Hi, how are you?
Good. How about yourself?
Good.
So my question is there a bad look on it being too many investors?
Well, you got to think about how you're going to pay them all back. You know what I mean? Like, what are you promising them?
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They're going to want to know, okay, if you got, because it may not be a bad look. I've actually seen where someone was doing, they were trying to just get 50,000 from all these people, right? So if the return is 50,000 plus 5%, right? You want to make sure that you're going to be able to afford that and still make some money yourself. Otherwise, or unless it's just, I'm not going to make money. This is just to get it out there. I'm gonna make sure they're all paid back plus whatever we agree upon. But that's the kind of math you're going to have to do to make it make sense. So it's not impossible. I don't think it's horrible. I think it's just, you got to figure out what works for you.
Okay. And my other question was, okay, so there's a saying that business deals takes place on the golf course. What is the best setting to have these meetings dealing with 6 figures, 7 figures numbers?
I think it depends on the movie and who you're talking to, Some meetings are done at Soho House. You know what I mean? Some meetings are done at Equinox, just, hey, go be the towel boy for a second and then go in there and pretend like you're working out and see who's there. I think it really just depends on, right place, right time. Yes, I know that's the saying, but really that saying is telling you, where do the people that you want to get to hang out? That's what you have to figure out.
So I got to figure out, you don't got no hints, no tips, like where they hang. Is it the golf course? Is that it?
I think it depends on your movie. So what's your movie about?
Well, I don't have, I'm an actor. I'm about to get into this side of the business, so I'm just learning. That's it.
Gotcha. So I would say it varies. So for example, I mentioned about my documentary on prostate cancer. So those people are hanging out at medical conferences. They're hanging out at roundtable discussions with men who are dealing with prostate cancer. So I just started going to all these events, right? I sent out my deck to all these nonprofits, small, big, because I didn't know no better. And then when I'd hear, some would say, unfortunately, we can't. And I got a lot of no's. And I want to make sure I state this too. The company who ended up helping me the most actually told me no the first couple times. And then so I just kept inviting them to stuff. I was like, okay, that's fine. So I invited them to my screening at LA Film School. I invited them here, I invited them there. And it was a screening at LA Film School, which was actually my worst screening because it was a huge theater and 30 people showed up, and 30 people in a 300-seat theater is depressing, okay? Just put it like that. But they came up to me and was like, oh my God, your movie's amazing. Let's see how we can connect. So it's about figuring out, depending on who the audience, right, or who the company is, where these people hang out. And once I figured out, oh, let me attend these events, then people start sharing information with you. Oh, you know what? You should talk to so-and-so at, Janssen Pharmaceuticals, because they're looking for da-da-da-da-da. And that's how that happens.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Hey, Kelly.
Hey, Landi woman. Don't make me go on camera, please. Please, God.
It would be nice to see your face, but it's okay. Go ahead.
I saw this question a little earlier up, and I actually had the same question, so I'm going to reiterate it. When you are putting qualifications, and particularly when you're trying to get money, and you and say you're a new filmmaker, but you do have experience working with multi-million-dollar or whatever, at what point are you being obnoxious and stepping on toes, or what should you say? Should you say, I mean, should you say that you have experience in another industry, and in that industry you have worked on, or you've negotiated, multi-million-dollar projects? Is that helpful, or do they think, oh, okay.
No, I think that's super helpful. Matter of fact, I was just talking to someone about that because he was running virtual live events, but they're for big companies. I was like, you need to say that, because he is managing multi-million-dollar budgets. And that's important to know, that if he was given, $2 million, that he wouldn't squander it, that he would know how to handle it, that he'd understand how to do escrow. Like, that's important. So yes, I would include that. Yes, I may be a newer filmmaker, but I've done da 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 da.
Great, thank you.
All right, is it Cara?
Yes, good evening, and thank you for having this. This is actually my first evening, and so I was not prepared to be on camera, and I was actually in the process of putting my hand down because what Kelly just brought up, that was the question that I was going to ask. I put it in the chat earlier, so she brought it up before, but that was exactly the question, because having done shorts and working in the automotive industry, and so having dealt with multi-million-dollar budgets and forecasting and all of that stuff, I just wanted to make sure that that was still credible to put down and say, no, I've seen a budget before. I know, in terms of what you wanted to say. So if that was something that we could put in the production team bio.
Yes, I think that's super important, because it shows that, like you said, you know how to do forecasting and all that. So yes, that is a transferable skill. And yes, I would definitely put that in my bio. That's a great question. Well, thank you, everyone. So many of you stuck around for, because I talked long, I wanted to make sure that I gave ample Q&A. As you see, I love helping filmmakers, so I don't mind. But I wish you all the best. And, for all of you who are just getting started, for Beyond, like all of y'all, like, do it. Don't let these things scare you. The more you practice, you see how I said, I didn't know no better. So I just did stuff and saw what happened, right? So and sometimes having too much knowledge can hinder you, because I got to get this right. I got to get that right. You start thinking you got to get all these things right. But I say just do it. These are steps to help protect you, right? I just try to give you things to keep you safe and protect you and make sure you're not giving away all your equity. But at the end of the day, you learn by doing. And so get out there and make those films.
I hope you found this class helpful, and if so, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel and make comments because I'd love to hear from you. What do you want to learn next? Please let me know. And remember, you have to think like an investor. If someone wanted you to invest in their project or business, you'd want to know they knew how to manage your money, right? So that you could get a return on your investment. Well, it is no different when you're pitching your project. The more you can make your deck clean and concise and keep additional slides available depending on who you're pitching to, the more likely you will find the right investor for your film. All right? Okay, well, good luck with your pitch decks, and I will see you in the next video. Take care, everyone.